Agriculture in India, Part 2. In the first part, we saw a general introduction to agriculture, its main features in an overall perspective. In this essay, we will study agriculture in a little more details and also the allied sectors of agriculture. As you know, agriculture along with allied sector accounts for nearly 2/3 of livelihood of our population. Before we start this essay, we'll once again recapitulate overall features of Indian agriculture in a nutshell. India ranks second in the world in the farm output. Its total geographical area is 328 million hectares, and its net area sown accounts for 142 million hectares, which is nearly about 50%. And the gross cropped area is nearly 191 million hectares. The major crops are rice, wheat, coarse cereals, pulses, oilseeds, and food grains. Indian agriculture contributes 14% of GDP and it provides food to more than a billion people. This sustains 65% of our country's population. Indian agriculture overall produces more than 51 major crops and provides raw material to industries, and its contribution to export earnings are fairly big to an extent of 1/6 of the total export earnings over the years. Now, Indian agriculture is also famous for its biodiversity. Almost 60% of the Indian land comprises of agricultural land, and climate in India is suitable for agriculture. There is also a strong and well-dispersed research and action system that has been developing over the years. Despite all this fact, it is an undeniable fact that Indian agriculture suffers from many weaknesses, and they are: the average yield in India is just 30 to 50% of the highest average yield in the world. Agriculture in India is not technically developed. Irrigation facilities are inadequate, and this results in farmers still being dependent on the monsoon rainfall. Illiteracy and socio-economic backwardness are the reasons for this low productivity in India. Share of agriculture in GDP has been declining in the past few years, and it is the service sector and the industry sector which are progressing. Despite this, Indian agriculture has a tremendous potential and offers opportunities in many areas. They are expanding operations to include planting and harvesting, expanding at the international markets, and partnering with the firm that only plants and harvests crops, and technological development in agriculture, and then the potential in agro-based industries as well. Agricultural education is another field. There have been many milestones in the agriculture development of the country. The noteworthy are the Green Revolution, which started in 1968, then the Evergreen Revolution again in 1996, also known as the Second Green Revolution. There is a Blue Revolution that is taking place, which is basically development of fisheries in the country. And then there was a White Revolution, which is the Operation Flood. Then the Yellow Revolution, that is flowers and edible oils. The Biotechnology Revolution that is taking place. And then the ICT Revolution, that is Information and Communication Technology, which is penetrating our Indian agriculture sector. Now, we will start with the land use pattern in India and the position of agriculture therein. Land use pattern in India relates to physical characteristics of the land and the institutions and other resource framework like labor, capital, etc. All these aspects are associated with the economic development. India has a total land area of approximately 328 million hectares. Mostly land utilization statistics that are obtainable for almost 93% of the entire land. From the time of independence, people have been resourceful again to add another 22 million hectares. The increasing population pressure, of course, was the main reason. As a result, 162 million hectares of land is net sown area, and it accounts for almost 51% of the total land available. Therefore, it is one of the stupendous percentage of net sown area to the total land area. Now, according to the available land use statistics, around 1.3% of the land use is said to be under fruit trees, and 5% of the land falls in the category of uncultivated land. That means which is cultivated once in every 2 to 3 years. Thus, nearly about 51% of the whole area on an average is cultivated once a year. The cultivated lands are subsidiary lands, and they are kept so as to re-establish their richness. Its use depends on high quality and timely rains also. Pastures and other grazing lands. The area that is separated as a cultivable waste has remained stationary, that is around 6.4%, and that has been there for several decades now. The land under permanent pasture is despondently low, and it suggests a remarkable population pressure on the land. The credit also must be given to the farmers, because with the so modest land under pastures, they have the biggest number of cattle, and they have been nurtured mainly on husk, grain chaff, farm waste and fodder crops. And this is definitely the most economical way to have a large number of draught animals and bovine cattle. Areas that have been classed under forest are also used for cattle grazing. Forested land in India. Forested land in India is far less in scientific norm. For a self-sufficient economy and fairly accurate ecological steadiness or a balance, at least 1/3 of the total land area must have been kept under forest and natural vegetation. But in India, it is as low as 19.27%. Photographic proof, that is obtained from the satellites, have confirmed that only about 46 million hectares have come under the real forest. And this is as against the estimated 63 million hectares according to the figures of the land use pattern. Therefore, a bigger area under forest is an obligation. That is to maintain ecological balance and for the absorption of carbon dioxide, so that the greenhouse effect is minimized. As we all know, the greenhouse effect would raise temperature of the atmosphere at a global stage, and it may lead to thawing of ice caps and equivalent rise in the sea level. And this will jeopardize the low-lying, densely populated parts of the world. Further, forests are home to wildlife and help their continuation. They help in enhancing the level of rainfall, minimizing cases of famine. Forest lands also help in permeation of rainwater in the subsoil and modifying the flow of river waters, both in rainy and dry seasons. Forests safeguard not only water but the soil as well. They thus help in plunging the volume of floodwaters and their ferocity. Wasteland. As a part of the land that is not utilized for the moment is classified as the wasteland. This embraces the baked and rocky deserts. High mountainous and uneven lands also fall into this category. At times, humankind has been responsible to add such areas by deforestation and overgrazing. Measures for proper land use. How do we tackle the shortage of land and the increasing pressure of population? Cities and towns have been obligated to grow vertically rather than horizontally, as we have been seeing in the past few decades, especially in the metropolitan areas. Further, land is needed to develop industry, commerce, transport and recreational facilities as well. In view of the mounting pressure on land for numerous plants, there have been many measures that have been undertaken to control soil erosion, desertification, etc., and which turns these land into cultivable land into wilderness. In addition, some of the barrens also have been brought around for different uses. Likewise, with the help of up-to-date scientific methods of farming, productivity of land also can be further increased. In India, the capacity for expansion of cultivation to further new areas is very restricted, as it is obvious because of the increasing population pressure and the availability of land. As of now, 49% of the entire reporting land is culture. Fallow and other wastelands, including grazing pastures which are not currently cultivated, is presumed to be around 42 million hectares. And further expansion of cultivation to such lands would be very expensive because the improvements will have to be made on irrigation and water and soil conservation methods that are existing in the country today. In the dynamic context, keeping in view the natural endowments and also the recent advances in the technology, the overall interests of the country therefore will dictate certain modifications or a change in the existing land use pattern of the region and the country. A proper study of the present land use pattern, therefore, is necessary, and this will help us in developing trends for planned shifts in the land use pattern in India. Now let us move on to another important agriculture-related sector, that is animal husbandry in India. A large number of farmers in India depend on animal husbandry for their livelihood. In addition to supplying milk, meat, eggs and hides, animals, that is mainly bullocks, happen to be major source of power for the farmers and others. Thus, the animal husbandry plays an important role in the economy, especially the rural economy. India accounts approximately 25% of the world's cattle. Today, India has the world's largest dairy herd, that is composed of cows and buffaloes, and it is more than 300 million strong, and it stands first in the milk production with 112 million tons of milk, that is 2009 and 2010, and India also happens to be the third largest egg producer in the world. As regards the poultry meat, India is sixth largest producer. The majority of India's animal products are consumed domestically. Exports are also, of course, growing. The National Dairy Development Board was established in 1965 under the auspices of Operation Flood. That was in Gujarat, and it promoted a plan and organized the dairy development through cooperatives in the country. Now, the Operation Flood was the world's largest integrated development program, and which attempted to establish linkages between rural milk producers and the urban population. And it organized farmer-owned and managed dairy cooperative societies. In the early 1990s, the program was in its third phase, and it was receiving a financial assistance from the World Bank and commodity assistance from the European Economic Community as well. At that time, India had more than 64,000 dairy cooperative societies with close to 7.7 million members. These cooperatives established a daily processing capacity of more than 15 million liters and 727 tons of milk powder. Now let us move to fishing in India, which is another important sector. Fishing in India is a major industry in its coastal states, employing over more than 14 million people, and fish production in India has increased more than tenfold since its independence in 1947. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the fish output in India doubled between 1990 and 2010. The country has a long coastline of more than 8,000 kilometers, equally has a large areas under estuaries, backwaters, lagoons, etc. And these are all conducive for developing, for capturing as well as culturing fisheries. With the declaration of the exclusive economic zone in 1977, an area of around 2 million square kilometers has been added to our jurisdiction with the absolute right of exploring, exploiting the natural utilization of living resources in the sea waters. The inland fishery resources include nearly 2 lakh kilometers of stretch of rivers and canals, and it has 29 lakh hectares of reservoirs, 24 lakh hectares of ponds and tanks, and various forms of water bodies, which includes brackish water areas as well. Fishery science and agriculture is the sunshine sector of Indian economy, and it provides a livelihood to the economically backward population. Moreover, fishery science has immense scope and potential to earn foreign currency. It has been recognized as the powerful income and employment generator as it stimulates growth of number of subsidiary industries, and it is a source of cheap and nutrition food, besides being source of foreign exchange earlier as said before. The marine fish harvested in India consists of about 65 commercially important species or groups. Pelagic and midwater species contribute 52% of the total marine fish. That was in 2004. India is a major supplier of fish in the world, and the country exported over 6 lakh metric tons of fish to some 90 countries, and it earned $1.8 billion there. Shrimps are one of the major varieties that have been exported. Giant prawn is the dominant species, cultured and followed by Indian white prawn. Farmed shrimp accounted for about 60% of the shrimp exported. India was the 6th largest producer of marine and freshwater capture fisheries, and it is the 2nd largest aquaculture farmed fish producer in the world. Fish as a food, both from fish farms and catch fisheries, offers India one of the easiest and fastest way to address our country's malnutrition and food security problem. Now, despite the rapid growth in the fish production in India, the average annual production in India is only 2 metric tons per fisherman, as compared to 172 tons in Norway, 72 tons in Chile, and 6 tons per fisherman in China. Higher productivity, knowledge transfer for sustainable fishing, continued growth in fish production with increase in high fish exports have a large potential for increasing the living standards of our Indian fishermen. Now in India, the fish harvest production distribution is difficult because of the poor rural road infrastructure, lack of cold storage, and absence of organized retail in most parts of the country. Now the fishing industry in India, all said and done, still has a large economic benefits and potential. During the past decades, the Indian fisheries and aquaculture has witnessed improvements in craft, tackle, and farming methods. Creation of required harvest and post-harvest infrastructure has been receiving due attention and at the state governments. All this has been inducing a steady growth. To harvest the economic benefits from fishing, India is adopting exclusive economic zone, which is stretching from 200 nautical miles, that is 370 kilometers, into the Indian Ocean, and it encompasses more than 2 million square kilometers. The potential annual catch from the area has been estimated around 4.5 million tons. That is in addition to the marine zone, and India has about another 14,000 square kilometers of brackish water available for aquaculture. And freshwater ponds and swamps also add to the potential of the fishing possibilities. And nearly 64,000 kilometers of rivers and streams are also available. Therefore, the aquaculture systems adopted in the country vary greatly depending on the input that is available in particular region as well as in the investment capabilities of the farmer. While extensive aquaculture is being carried out in comparatively large water bodies, the different culture systems in India include intensive pond culture with supplementary feeding and aeration. Then the composite carp culture, weed-based carp puriculture, integrated fish farming with poultry, pigs, etc. Now, India no doubt has very large opportunities to explore and exploit, and according to the United Nations estimates, about 1.2 million hectares of potential brackish water area is available in India, and it is suitable for fish farming. In addition to this, around 8.5 million hectares of salt-affected areas are also available. Now, the Bengal, Orissa, Andhra Pradesh are the old areas, and the new areas are Punjab, Haryana, Assam, and Tripura. Brackish water aquaculture is also concentrated in the coasts of Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Orissa, and West Bengal. While the main areas of consumption for freshwater fish are in West Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, and northeastern India. Now, the leading fish producing states in India are West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Orissa, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and Karnataka. There are major harbors which are associated with the fishing industry. Apart from 4 main harbors, that is Mangalore in Karnataka, Kochi in Kerala, Chennai in Tamil Nadu, Visakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh, and Roy Chowk in Kolkata, 23 other minor fishing harbors and 95 fish landing centers are designated to provide landing and berthing facilities for the fishing crafts for the fishermen. The government also provides a subsidy to the poor so that they can motorize their traditional craft to increase the range and frequency of operation with a consequent increase in the catch and the earnings.